Cali, I got the West, man. Deuce got the Chris. So, man, what they gonna do now? Put the West and the Chris together, man.
Where you at? Where you at? Where you at? Atlanta, where you at? Where you at? Where you at? Birmingham, where you at? Where you at? Where you at? Mobile, where you at? Where you at? Where you at? Down south, showing no strain. Got the clubs and the club, we shaking that thing. Got the young player coming up on the run down. See the girls and they too smart. Like real tight, pockets and rice. He can't cheat to the end of the night. Got the screw coming out, gotta get the club high. You know how to die. Everybody wanna be down with the side. 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 Everybody trying to get down with the side. Everybody wanna be down with the side.
Welcome to the Free Lunch Podcast, home of the New South Movement. This is your boy, Tight. I got my man, B. Jeezy with me. B. Jeezy, what happening?
Watch out now. Free Lunch Podcast. What's happening? Your boy BG. Back at it again, live in the flesh. Tight, how you feel?
Man, I'm feeling good, but we can't get no Speed Hustle Chico intro, man.
You know, it just come natural. Whatever I'm feeling at the moment. And plus, I got to have the camera. When that camera come on, because you know I want to be on TV, you get a whole nother response out of me. A whole nother response out of me when them lights come on.
When them lights come on, you get a whole nother response. And we got a special guest who keep chiming in with the laugh. he can't go to mute. He got to let the people know he on. He got to let the people know he's back on the podcast. C. Frank Campbell is back. What's going on, C. Campbell?
What's happening, fellas? What's going on with it?
Oh, we don't get no rapper intro?
Oh, he tried to cut it short, dog. We talked about it. He tried to cut it short.
He cut it short real. What's going on? You all right?
I'm good, man. I had a long day, man. So we hear the man talk about these people, man. Talk about what the people doing out here today, man.
So we don't get a C. Frank Campbell on Instagram, IG. Look me up, holler back at me.
You know, I do that on my closing, man. You know, when I get ready to close out, I do that. Let them know where I'm at.
You do it on your opening too.
Got a script.
Well, let me start over. Hey, what's happening, people? What's happening? Where is your boy C. Frank Campbell? Hook me up on Twitter. That's C. Frank Campbell on Instagram. Look your boy up. Holler at me now.
He really wanted to do it anyway.
He did. So what's been going on, fellas, man? Anything new, anything interesting?
Man, I'm just trying to recoup, man. We had the 50th anniversary of the bridge crossing, Bloody Sunday, Selma Bridge Crossing Jubilee. I'm exhausted, dog. It was black folks everywhere down here celebrating that monumental occasion. So it's gonna take me at least a week to get my feet back up under me.
Before you Instagramming out where BG at.
Lord have mercy.
It won't take you
Lord
long before you back on the road somewhere.
Lord have mercy. It put in some work this weekend, man. You know, it's activities all over the place. People visiting friends and family from out of town, trying to make sure they were straight. But it was a good time. It was good to see the city popping like that. Good to see people coming back and trying to get a piece of that history. They was on your bridge.
they better get out that bridge. And I want us to talk about that today because for today's actual conversation and topic, I really want to take a deep dive into the Selma 50 and some other viewpoints that we kind of discussed collectively just around the coverage and the coverage of the actual event leading up to the Selma 50. I got a quick question, though, before I even jump into that. And this is 100% off topic. This is 100% random. But Instagram, right? Uh-huh. What is all this spam? They got spam on Instagram, too?
They got spam, dog.
Yeah, they got spam, man. They got stuff set up the way you can buy followers.
Cause you go look, you get somebody that adds you, or they say gonna follow you, and it's some chick with a bathing suit on with 0 followers.
Yep.
Or she ain't following nobody or whatever. However it work out, and they got spam on Instagram.
They just got all kinds of stuff to get your profile, and then have all these other people connecting to you. So yeah, it's even stretched on over to Instagram. Instagram ain't safe.
Instagram ain't even safe from the spam attack. So I just found that interesting. I was like, what is all this?
So don't add nobody. Don't add no chick with a bathing suit on that's just got 8 followers and 3 posts.
What she do?
Don't add.
Y'all better report it.
Who is that? Who is that? That's not a person. If it is a person, it's a catfish.
You catfish.
You being catfish?
Yeah, you being catfish.
Man, let's jump into the topic. So I'm gonna take a hiatus from doing the Vine, right? Because as we continue to grow the podcast and we try to venture out to different people, and we're gonna start doing some more interviews and that kind of thing. I kind of want to see how the podcast flows, minus doing the Vine portion of the podcast. That's not to say we won't bring it back, or that's not to say we can't find another segment to introduce that. But for now, or BG, or this is the perfect opportunity for me to do my plug. Or if we find a sponsor, someone that's interested to sponsor the Vine, then we would definitely consider bringing it back.
'Cause money talk.
But for now, since we don't have a sponsor, and since we are looking to kind of go into some new direction with the podcast and really introducing more interviews and introducing the podcast to more personalities and that kind of thing as we venture out, I think I'm gonna take a hiatus from doing the Vine segment. What you boy think?
I'm not mad at that. I feel good about it.
Okay. Well, with that said, I think it'll be a good opportunity for us to kind of transition into today's topic and today's conversation. And really, BG, you touched on that at the beginning of the podcast. But we kind of want to do two things, right? We kind of want to talk about Selma 50. I think it's important that we continue, as we push the New South movement, we continue to give the universe, give the podcast listeners a Southern perspective, and not so much that of another individual, of another group. But we had the opportunity to have someone that's from Selma, born and raised, participate in the actual event. So I'd be real curious to see at what part you participated in the actual weekend of events. You and I have talked about a few, but I'd be interested in hearing that. But then secondly, also take a deep dive into just some of the conversation that we've had around the novelty. And I think, C. Campbell, that's a word that you kind of use. So really talk about the whole novelty behind this idea, and C. Campbell allow you to share the story that you kind of shared also, and then go a little bit deeper into some of the topics and themes we discussed amongst the three of us. So BG, can you just give us your best journalistic description of what happened?
All right, so recap for the Jubilee weekend is what the people want. So, like I said, man, this was the 22nd year that we've had this type of celebration here in Selma.
So this wasn't the first one.
This was not the first one. We've been doing this for 22 years, man. Street festival style, to where we come in and we commemorate Bloody Sunday, 1965, the march from Selma to Montgomery. It's a weekend full of events going from Friday and ending on Sunday. On Friday, you'll have a lot of different workshops and breakout sessions where you have guest speakers come in and lecturers that are leading these sections on various topics. Then you also have like a pageant for Miss Jubilee and a step show. So on Saturday is the day where the festival really kicks off. Down by the bridge in the downtown area, you have vendors, people selling trinkets, music, all types of artists and things like that out there doing that thing. This particular year, we had President Obama that came in and addressed a crowd of about 40,000 people at the foot of the bridge. And then also you have like your nighttime events and soirees and stuff like that. And then on Sunday is a day where you have the churches in the city. They get active, and each church will like have somebody of significance come in and talk. One church had Pastor Jamal Bryant from up your way.
I know.
Jesse Jackson.
What was his sermon? He did a sermon. Pastor Bryant did a sermon talking about these H words ain't loyal, didn't it?
Well, yeah, I guess he got a diversity. He's diverse with his messages. I don't know exactly what he brought because I wasn't there. But different churches have different people that come in. And then Sunday afternoon is the official march, to where the people come in and kind of react the march and go across the bridge and do those type of things. So we had all of that stuff. This year was a special year because it was the 50th. So we had an extra amount of people. You had an extra amount of celebrities and stars and civil rights figures from the past that came to Selma to just take part in the occasion. Going into it, they were anticipating about 100,000 people to en masse upon Selma, and about 100,000 people were in Selma. So in a city that the population is about 30,000, we were overwhelmed, by the crowds of people coming from all across the country, different parts of the world. So with that being said, prior to the actual weekend, of course, the citizens were a little sketchy about how it was going to go down. How was the police presence and the security presence going to be with so many people? Space-wise, how they were going to control traffic, and how were the vendors going to be able to navigate, and mainly would people just have a good time being crammed in such a small space. I will say that at the end of it, I'll give the city a grade of about a C on it. I was expecting it to be an F because it was so many people and it didn't seem like there was appropriate planning for it. But the whole weekend went off. There were only 2 arrests, and those were just like disobedience type, somebody just acting out, disruptive behavior arrest. No real incidents broke out. Of course, there are some things that could have been done differently. There were some organizational issues. There was a major traffic jam on the bridge for people trying to cross the bridge. Me and some of my friends were stuck on the bridge for about an hour trying to get from one side to another, which is what you would expect when you don't have staff on the bridge directing traffic, telling people to keep moving, because people were ultimately on the bridge taking pictures and stuff like that. It could have been bad, but it didn't happen. So overall, the city did fairly well. There were some things. One of the neat things to see about it was that you had a lot of influence from different areas. There were a lot of police departments from other cities throughout the state troopers. The park service were there. They were helping out. And then you just had all other types of organizations there to try to help make sure that the thing was an overall success. BET was there. They had a stage, and they had Vanilla Ice, ironically, and some other.
They had who? Vanilla Ice?
Yeah, man, Vanilla Ice, Ice Baby. How they came up with Vanilla Ice?
Yeah, who are the participants? Hey. I saw my man Speed Hustle. Shout out to Chico. I'm gonna keep saying that, BG, because that's what you said on the IG video. Shout out to my man Chico. But I saw Bell Bill DeVoe. I saw who else did we see in the video? That
the five
Dougie Fresh
Boys was there. CC Winans was there. BB Winans was there. Ruben was there. AJ Calloway from 106 and Park. He a fool, but he was there.
What was his role? What was he doing there?
He was covering. He was covering. He's working. I don't know exactly what media stream he's working with, but he was there covering. We got a chance to talk to him. He came and spent some time with the bros. So we got an opportunity to chop it up with him. So it was people. It was all kinds of people here, man. Everybody. John Sally.
Yeah, I
saw pictures
John
with him.
Sally.
Thelma from Good Times was there.
No, Thelma was there.
Thelma was there.
Oh man,
Flavor Flav was even there.
Oh yeah, I heard he was gonna be there.
So it was just everybody, man. Everybody came down to be a part of it and to be in the midst of this, monumental occasion. So all in all, like I say, I was all right with what it was. Of course, it could have been better. There's some things I wanted to see differently, but I'm just glad that it went off without being a total disaster.
Two questions I got for you. Well, one really. What did you participate in as? Did you actually participate? Were you a participant in any of the actual events that happened on that weekend?
Yeah, I was a part of two events. I work with the Selma, Dallas County Friends of the Civil Rights Trail, which is just an organization that's set up to preserve the civil rights history of this area, working in collaboration with like the Montgomery Friends of the Trail and the Lowndes County Friends of the Trail. And so we had events on Saturday and Sunday. One was in collaboration with the International Black Broadcasters Association. We had a reception and a forum, and the forum featured a few black radio station owners, gave them an opportunity to answer some questions that had relevance to the community and just kind of get some feedback on how they approach certain issues from a radio station owner perspective. We did that. And then on Sunday, we recognized the courageous 8 members, those courageous 8 people that were very instrumental in getting the Selma civil rights portion kicked off, and the people that were advocating for voters' rights in this area.
Was John Lewis a member of the Courageous 8?
No, John Lewis is not a member of Courageous 8. John Lewis was a member of SNCC, the Student National Coordinating Committee, and they were kind of the first national type of organization to come into Selma to start working with the community and working with the residents, encouraging people to fight for the right to vote. So John Lewis was a part of the organization that had to come in and kind of meet with the Courageous 8 to get an idea and a feel for what the community makeup was and develop strategies for what they would need to do to reach the people of the Selma, Dallas County area. But he was not one of the Courageous 8.
No, essentially they worked with the Courageous 8.
Right, because the Courageous 8 were natives. They were people that knew the people, knew how the people were responded. They were in tune to the fears of the people. So they were just like kind of the resource or the people that you would lean on to really get an understanding for the battle that you, or the obstacles that you would face coming into this area.
Understood. So, so essentially the event turned out well. AJ from 106 and Park was there, and Vanilla Ice. That's the summary.
Well, that's a brief summary of the summary. It was a lot more than that. But people came out. People from all over the place, busloads of people flooded the city to see what Selma had going on.
But I raised that, and you said something interesting, and I kind of want to get C. Campbell to share his story. But, I kind of wanted to use, BG, what you talked about as far as you told that the Jubilee had really been going on for multiple years now. And this isn't the first time that we've had the Jubilee. But really for the remainder of today's conversation, what I like to do is really kind of piggyback off of a conversation that I had with C. Campbell around how Selma, or this last event, became more of a novelty. So, C. Campbell, if you really could share with the podcast listeners some of the commentary that you had during one of your meetings at work, and then we can kind of use that for the remainder of our conversation for today.
All right, yeah. So I guess it was last Wednesday, I'm sitting in a meeting, and the conversation about the Jubilee came up in terms of, was any of our students going? And so it was mentioned that, the White House has sent out some communication to a couple of universities in the surrounding area about needing volunteers. I asked a coworker who's also nominated about kind of her thoughts on kind of, I guess some of the negative comments that come from some of the Selma or seemingly negative comments that came from some of the Selma residents regarding how things have been going with the publicity in terms of the movie and communication or lack of communication thereof, and kind of the relationship with the residents and the city officials. What she was saying, and she was like, I know Charles can back me up on this, was the fact that, how, Selma is still segregated in terms of just in terms of the community, segregated in terms of some of the political structure, and kind of how I think what BG had mentioned earlier and his mom had mentioned on the first episode of Selma was about how in the 80s when the Great White Flight, in terms of people moving out. But we talked about, too, kind of how, it's good that Selma is getting some publicity now. Some people just don't know or choose to forget and choose to ignore the significance of some of the things outside of, yes, it's been negative, but some of the things that happened in the catalyst, like 1964 and Bloody Sunday, I was there was a catalyst to really push the Voting Rights Act along and make sure things were equal. But how now, because of it's become so much of a novelty, people are going to go down, people are going to go and take pictures, and because President Obama came, and it's good because, like I said, the novelty effect, in my opinion, is kind of a double-edged sword. Because, yes, it does give exposure to a lot of things and gives people the opportunity to understand and to possibly learn something about something they don't know. But at the same time, it's like you get that brief moment, and then, a week after, a week later, 2 weeks later, a month later, it's pretty much just a novelty. Because I put it on Instagram, I put it on Facebook. But at the end of the day, there's no real interest in uplifting that community, uplifting what's going on, and preserving the heritage of an area like that. It's all novelty. We can go down and sing songs, we can go stand on the bridge all day long, but at the same time, what's lasting effects, especially to Alabama citizens, let's do a little bit better job of protecting our state, protecting our legacy. So that's kind of where the conversation went, and kind of what she and I spoke on in the meeting. Of course, everyone else was a little bit quieter.
So you bring up a good point, and this is really what I wanted to talk about, and really use this podcast to take to use this podcast, use this moment to really highlight what I think is a big issue, just in general, and really what I think the New South movement is really all about, and that really being this idea of the novelty. You talk about this whole idea of the novelty and the whole this past weekend event, Selma 50 being that of one where you had a lot of people come down to celebrate, but also to have that opportunity to get that photo op. But one of the things I saw in addition to the photo ops and the large number of visitors, which can be seen as a double-edged sword if we're having this conversation, but that of just how leading up to the actual event, right? So you first have the movie that came out, which in a lot of ways I thought it was an opportunity for, and I really kind of changed my opinion when Oprah and the cast of Selma went down to visit Selma, and they donated the money. But I think it started then with really other people. When I say other people, I'm saying people that are not traditionally from the South that may not understand and know the history, really speaking on behalf of the South. And I think we saw a lot of that this past weekend and leading up to the actual event when we saw people, famous, big name folks on MSNBC having commentary around the actual leading up to the event, but not so much talking to people from the area, but more or less talking with people that are not even from the area, that probably were not even aware that the Jubilee had been ongoing for that many years, and really speaking on behalf of folks that are from the area. And I really kind of wanted to kind of touch on that and use history, right? So use history as an example to show how the North and people from different regions of the United States have treated and viewed folks from the South. You can use the W.E.B. Du Bois versus Booker T. Washington as an example of the different viewpoints. You can use the Martin and Malcolm example as an example. And BG, you wrote an article where you spoke about the environment supersedes DNA, and I think the approach that people from the South take is 100% different than folks from the North take. So I said a lot there. Feel free to jump on anything I just said, but essentially, I kind of wanted to frame the remainder of the conversation more or less around this idea of other folks from different regions speaking on behalf of the South. Because to be quite frank and honest, I didn't see a lot of commentary around coming from the Selma event from folks from the South. I saw a lot of commentary, really, in a lot of ways, coming on folks speaking on behalf of folks from the South.
Yeah, I think from a historical basis, there is some reasoning for that, for why, other regions' perspective dominates or supersedes Southern voice and Southern perspective. And I think you can kind of trace it back to kind of around the Civil War and Reconstruction, when the North defeated the South in the Civil War. The whole view of the South turned to one of, that Southerners were backwards, that they were, they weren't of a certain level of intelligence, they weren't capable of certain things, and that was just kind of to justify the defeat and to power, just the move to more industrialization in the North. They had to look down on the South to promote the building up of these other regions, because prior to the Civil War and prior to the development of the Northern Industrial Age, like, everything was coming through the South. All of the industry and stuff from an agricultural standpoint and all of that, before we had the factories and stuff, all of the money flowed through the South. So in the midst of all that warring and all of that type of stuff, in the midst of the defeat of the South by the North, the South had gotten put into a situation of being just this people that were in the dark. And I think from that time forward, there's just been a building on that theme. And then when we talk about just the coverage from a media standpoint, that will happen when you allow that other influence to come in. And, they have the mass streams. A lot of these major companies are headquartered in the Northeast, on the East Coast, in the West. So they have the machine. And so when there is something as hot as a Selma following the movie and all that type of stuff, then they're going to get their people in and they're going to push this story out and report it as such. And you might have a few Southern media outlets that are covering it, but they don't have the same amount of push. I think what you're saying is true, is that it highlights the fact of the people that are here. We have to collaborate and tell our story through our lens, because what we have, as we see, is captivating stories. It's things that people are moved by, and they will really be moved by it and really become more knowledgeable of what it all means. And it'll become less of a novelty when people who stand in it, who know the background, who know the players, who know all those things, are telling the story, versus somebody who just comes in, maybe talks to 2 or 3 people, and then they tell the story to the world.
And I actually, I got into it. It really wasn't a debate. It really was just me sending several emails to Jesse Washington. So shout out to the undefeated.com. For those that are not familiar with the undefeated.com, it's essentially Jason Whitlock's brainchild for a black Grantland. For those of you that are familiar with ESPN.com, they have a few, I guess the word affiliates or what have you around ESPN.com. They have the ESPNW. They have 538 by Nate Silver, and then they also have Grantland by Bill Simmons. Well, Jason Whitlock came up with this bright idea where he's essentially rolled out the undefeated.com. And Jesse Washington did one of the premier articles. It was over 9,000 words long, 9,300 something to be more exact. And he spoke about basically he followed Charles Barkley for a day or two, and he really gave this great read about Barkley, and then he went into comparing Barkley to Booker T. Washington, etc. But the thing that I kind of, in the email that I sent to him after I read that post, was more or less around people talk about Charles Barkley and how he says things and he gets interviewed and he don't know what he's talking about. But the point I guess I was making was he's like the only voice from the South that has any type of influence. And so when you're not pushing a Southern perspective or a Southern personality, or if there isn't a Southern voice, then you rely on that one influential voice. And today that appears to be Charles Barkley.
Which I have some, I kind of, I don't know what the correct word is, but I feel some kind of way about Charles Barkley being in that position and being the go-to guy for the voice of the South, because it is one-sided. A lot of what you see, especially in that article, I think it highlights more of that accommodationist element, to where throughout your life, throughout his life, he talked about having encounters and with white people and those encounters. He didn't have any blatant racist encounters and things like that. And so from that, I think a lot of times he'll walk up to the line for, as a black man. But if it ever was to come to a point where he would have to really speak out against the things, the injustices that are imposed upon black people by other races, by white people, he won't ever do that on his platform. And I just personally feel like, that sometimes being in that seat, you got to be willing to do that. So for me, kind of in line with what you're saying, as him being the exclusive voice, I think it doesn't serve the greater good of the people, because it's not really expressing a diverse opinion. It's not really expressing how different black people feel about certain things. And so now you got the mass community, you've got the white community and all of these other ethnic groups feeling like, okay, well, this is how all black people feel about certain situations. Right. So to your point, I would like to see it open up, and the reason for him being the one is still puzzling to me.
But it isn't, right? He has a personality, and he has a swag that I think is one that's popular in the South. But I still feel like if folks invested in the South, and if folks invested in learning the culture and the history, you'll discover underneath that rock is plenty of personalities and plenty of opinions and plenty of perspectives that number one may differ from Charles, or they may be the same, but they still are engaging and they still are interesting and they still are influential. And I think that that's the reason why it's important that we continue with this particular what we've kind of coined and phrased as the New South movement. And I was actually watching a CNN special on Malcolm, the assassination of Malcolm X. And Malcolm during that interview was basically saying that what the honorable Elijah Muhammad was teaching was intelligence. He was teaching separation, and what Dr. King was preaching was essentially was stupidity. Integration was integration, but it was stupid from his perspective, for lack of better words. And the reason he was saying that was because, he felt like you shouldn't allow, if a man has a dog and he allows the dog to bite you, hit the dog or kill the dog is what Malcolm said. And if the dog is on 2 feet, hit him back or whatever, the guy that's releasing the dogs. And so he didn't understand. And I think a lot of that has to do with your article, Environment Supersedes DNA. So when you have this historical perspective ingrained in you, and you see a lot of that coming from blacks from the North, and thinking that southern folks are only around for entertainment purposes only, then it's seen as though we're not intellectual or we're not intelligent. And I think that's a perspective that we really, as Southern folk, and really need to kind of change the perspective of.
Like Gosa was saying earlier, we've got to find the both media outlets but other avenues of promoting our own culture, because nobody else is going to do it for us. I mean, we have had a few voices. So you got Charles Barkley, who does represent, fairly or unfairly, a large part of a lot of people's view on Southerners. But you've had other, political strategists like James Carville. He's out of New Orleans. He's
James Carville, but is he Creole or he's not black?
No, he's not black. I'm saying that, but it's something just from a Southern perspective. You have people like that, but only in certain pockets. And we don't have, like you said, it's just a lot of things I think where a lot of people need to come together from on a unified front in the South from a black perspective and from a general Southern perspective and say, hey, we're more into some of our parts. But especially going back to Charles Barkley, there are a lot more black educators, black inventors, black business people in the South that have made a lot of accomplishments. But like I said, we never hear those stories, or we rarely hear those stories, as opposed to, people who have made it, who are in industry up on the North Coast, East Coast, whatever the case may be. So we've got to do a better job in some way or fashion through media, through social media, through print materials, through radio, to try and really tell our story. I just kind of look at a lot of different things. And then just even looking at, when I meet people, and you talk to them about you're from the South, or, you just those initial conversations, everybody still has, like BG was saying, going back from the Civil War, going back to what people see on TV, what they've seen in movies. They have that mindset. I was just talking with someone from New York, I guess, who's been in the South maybe about, a year and a half, 2 years or something like that. What this individual was saying to me was that, I was like, yeah. I said, how have you felt about the South since you've been here? And before you got here, the conversation was kind of, I really expected, a lot more dirt roads. I expected a lot more, backwards type things. And people really do have that mentality. And people try to say that's not true. But, a lot of people do have that mentality of the South. And to me, like in the modern age, where you can get on Google and look up anything, where you can travel anywhere within a matter of hours, we should not still have that same mentality. But that's the message that's put out there, and that's something that's going to be hard for us to fight. I think that, we've got to do a better job of teaching the younger generation to better speak up for this state, and to also defend the South in a lot of different ways. Not to the fact where you got to get into a physical altercation or just be hostile with somebody, but I think we got to do a better job of protecting our image. I think I sent you a text the other day talking about a certain radio show, which we both like, but the fact that you use the term Bama in a derogatory term when and then the person who hosts the show is from Alabama, to me, that's disrespectful.
You talking about the Tom Jordan Morning Show?
Right. Let's go ahead and say it.
I think he was trying not to say that.
I'm trying not to say it. But to me, like I said,
why not?
Let's see. Okay, we out there. We put it out there. Tom Jordan. I like Tom's show. But my thing is when you have a character like Huggy Lowdown that comes on and uses the term Bama, and my thing is you're from Alabama, to me, you putting your own self, you allow somebody to come on your own show, put your own heritage in your state down. To me, that's not, and that continues to perpetuate the things that we continue to have to fight against in this state, because you use that term to, number one, to categorize an entire population of people, but then also a typical, you try to categorize it to use a derogatory term for people of low intelligence, low moral standards.
And that's the point I'm trying to make too. I want to. I know you're making the point about about the Bama, but it's bigger than just the state of Alabama too. Though it's the entire Southeast in a lot of ways, where it's basically trying to say that the low intelligence rate. But continue. I apologize.
Yeah, no, but see, that's my thing is you use terms like that, and then I say as a person from Alabama, you allow that. But I've seen too many people. I mean, we talk about the blacks that went up north, right after the Civil War, but you even look at it in terms. I look at people in my family, people that we all know that left in the mid to late '60s and '70s. They went up north to places like Chicago, Michigan, New York to work in the automobile industry and other things. People that left, and sometimes, we have a lot of people that still come back, don't forget their roots, but you have a lot of people that, you come in, they go up, they know up north, you see them, they come back, in a year their accent will change. They articulate things differently. They speaking as if, it's like I said, they have a novelty effect about the South. So I think sometimes it's like when you are either afraid of your own background so you can fit in, you want to fit in, that perpetuates the stereotype because you yourself are not defending the heritage where you come from. I mean, you look at this nation. Yes, you talk about the Mayflower and some other places where people landed, but this country started in the South and spread out upwards and westward. So when you talk about the agricultural-based industry, from cotton to lumber to tobacco, I mean, it started in the South, and so to try to forget the heritage in the South really is saying you try to forget a whole part of American history and try to say it doesn't exist. You're trying to say it's not even worth mentioning. And I think that does a big injustice to the South, but also to the history of this country.
But I wouldn't say that people are trying to forget the South. I was just thinking that they don't. That the impression I get is when you're speaking on behalf of the South. Perfect example. I saw Russell Simmons on MSNBC,
right.
Or going to participate in MSNBC for the Selma 50. At what role or what point does having Russell Simmons speak about the Selma 50 got to do with anything the Selma 50? It's almost like, number one, it's an opportunity for an opportunist, and this is not me trying to down talk Mr. Simmons. This is me trying to use that as to make my point and to form an example. At what point did MSNBC not have the opportunity to find someone that either participated in the actual March on Washington, the Selma 50, in the Bloody Sunday event, or just go find someone who's articulate enough from the South to participate on that panel? But the point I guess I'm trying to make is that at what point does you say that there are folks that are intelligent enough and folks that have enough that can articulate and speak on behalf of the South, or speak on behalf of Southerners versus just picking someone randomly who has no relationship to any event that occurred to speak in a lot of ways on behalf of that Southern voice?
I think the movie, the Selma movie, changed the whole dynamic of everything that we're talking about as it relates to this whole 50th anniversary, and of course, and it's a reflection of what goes on all the time. The movie made Selma into a hot button topic. It made it a headline news. Everybody was talking about it. It was the war stuff added to it, and then it rolled right into the actual Jubilee, because you would have to think that, let's just say that we weren't doing it, if we had not done the Jubilee, if we had nothing that had been 22 years in the making. If we didn't have that foundation, what would this weekend have been like? It would have been a startup from scratch that might not have had the same magnitude. So the movie kind of changed and brought everybody's attention to it.
BG, I disagree because in that event, then that's why I think that people got to do their homework a little bit more, because had the movie triggered this 50th anniversary celebration, then I'm okay with having whomever from whatever region speak on the topic, right?
You got to know that's what it was. That actually powered, because it got a lot of national attention. People who never knew anything about Selma.
But if the event had been going on for 50, but if you have an event that's been celebrated for 22 years, wouldn't it make sense to do your homework and figure out what's going on down in Selma and see if you have a mayor? They got mayors in Selma. Doesn't Selma have a mayor?
That's what I was getting to. Is that once you bring that element into it, it's no longer about the substance. It's no longer about finding out the background and what's going on now and how it compares to the past. It's commercial at this point. Once that happens, once you start powering that, it's commercial. It's about coming in, getting your photo op. It's about the media stream getting down there and getting the story and capture whatever they can. It's about all of those things. It's not about talking to the people. It's not about really getting down to the forefathers of that particular arm of the movement. It's about the moment and capitalizing on the moment to enhance your brand. So you go and pull a Russell Simmons, who has a finger somewhat on the pulse of the black community. He's up there. He's been a vocal person in some of the other movements that have been going on here in the last 10, 15 years or whatever. So, yeah, we'll get him. He's in New York. He's somewhat of an authority on hip-hop culture. He'll be a good draw. Maybe he'll pull in some of those 20, 30-year-old viewers to pay attention to our show. It ain't about pulling in the people that really laid down a Bernard Lafayette or F.D. Reese or even an Amelia Boynton, even though she's of age now. It's not really about those people.
Fred Gray Jr.
When you talk about the main, Fred Gray Jr., you know, right. Diane Nash. It's not about those people. It's a lot of unsung heroes that really stand, and families of those heroes that stand in need of recognition. But when it comes to that point, and when that movie has put it on that particular platform, it's all about the opportunity and the commercial lift.
Well, I guess the question then becomes, we're doing it. I think we are. We're trying to push this movement forward, and we're trying to break into different industries and try, whether it be the arts, whether it be clothing, whether it be this podcast and media. But how do you change the perspective? Because in a lot of ways, we're dealing with, you said historically how blacks from the South have viewed blacks from the North have viewed blacks from the South, and how from an intellectual perspective we've essentially been seen as being ignorant folk. You know, just because we have a draw, I have a draw, or because I'm from, or because I'm from the state of Alabama. How do you change that perspective, and how do you push this movement so that you can break into these media market and into these art circles and that sort of thing to show the folks that the South got something to say? You
got to find those outlets. You got to promote them. You've got to, and like I said, they're there, but it's going to take active people like ourselves to get out there, to put those stories out there for people and to let them spread, and to also hopefully, like I said, overwhelm people enough. We ask the question, how far we want to take this thing. We got to take it to the limit in terms of promoting it, getting other people to sign on board, listen to our story, listen to what we're saying, because you look at the music industry. How many music festivals do we have in the South? A lot of people know about the New Orleans Jazz Fest or Essence Fest, but how many things do we have in small towns, Alabama, like in my hometown? How many people know about W.C. Handy Music Festival, being the father of the blues? Yeah, I know these bigger cities have more accommodations and they can accommodate more people But I mean, you had how many people show up to Selma this weekend? Selma ain't got a whole lot of accommodations, but because of novelty. But if you get the right people, there, like BG said, it's novelty. And that's my key word. It's novelty. But we get the right people to show up, it will bring those people and hopefully bring some little bit of exposure. We can start shedding light on those stories. But it's getting out there in media. It's getting out there on radio. It's getting out there with flyers. It's getting out there one-on-one communications and telling people about the stories, so we can try to get out there and educate people. But they say we've got to get those people, black people in general, to really stop looking down on each other, looking down on us, or people in the South. And I know we're all talking from a very similar perspective. I know, Taich, you in D.C., so I know you are a very good ambassador of this state, but also a good ambassador of the South in terms of where you are. But we need other people that have gone, that are working in other parts of the country, in the parts of the world, to really talk highly and talk positively, to give people that perspective. So like I said, a lot of times when I meet people, when I've traveled through my work, and I mentioned I'm from Alabama, they give you that Alabama, how people tend to do you sometimes, is, you stop and say, okay, why you give me that reaction? It's going to take more of everybody willing to have that conversation, say, not being physical, not being, aggressive about it, but say, hey, why did you say that? Well, let me educate you. Let's talk about it for a second to give you that perspective, because a lot of people say, you mentioned Birmingham. A lot of people that haven't been there enough from Alabama, all they know is they've seen the black and white clips of the dogs and the fire hoses. But, it's up to more people like us to tell us about, the musicians that have come from Birmingham, the food in Birmingham, the politics, the business that have gone in Birmingham. It's up to us to tell people those stories one-on-one in our everyday encounters. But also we got to get our people, and I said, I had to go back, but Tom Jones say, hey, Tom Jones, you need to start letting Huggy Low down talk about Alabama and use that derogatory term. You need to start letting more people that want to come to the South to really talk about what we're doing. I think we do have a lot of black radio hosts, including Tom, Steve Harvey, Ricky Smiley, that try to elevate the South, but we need more of these people to get together to do this on a more united front to really tell their story and push it forward.
I talked about the bridge crossing and it being a commercial thing and people capitalizing off of it. But one thing is to remember is that a lot of people in that spirit of novelty were also coming to Selma for something. Right. They were coming to Selma to learn about the history and to see the landmarks and to try to piece it all together and really get into the mode or get into the spirit of what had happened, and what's happening now. And I think when we talk about our responsibility as being natives is that we have to be in a position to give the people what we have. We have to be in a position to educate them. When they come, they don't really know what they're coming for. But because we're here and we know it, we've got to be able to present it. That's one of the things that I would have liked to have seen more of in the midst of the celebration and the jubilation would have been more of the story being told. More highlighting on those important people that laid the groundwork for what happened. And I think when you do that, then you force people to really appreciate what's there versus just coming in, having a good time, going home, and just taking advantage of a photo op. So we have a responsibility to really step up and talk about what we know and really, put our thumbprint on what it means to be a Southerner or what it means to come from a said region and not just sit back and we don't do anything. We don't tell the story and then we only make room for somebody else to come in and tell it for us. So in terms of an action plan, if it's just us and other people that use their various platforms to work together and put it out there and really tell it real. And then, of course, we support one another and we create this infrastructure within the South that can only be built upon and it can't really be duplicated or taken away from.
2 points for me. Number one, I think the most powerful podcast that we may have done, and really what has been my theme for this upcoming year has been the power circle. And really linking ourselves with other folks and really empowering ourselves from those numbers to really push a movement and really push a purpose forward. I think that in your commentary, BG and Charles, I think you make two good points. and one of those being we have to find people from the South that are passionate about the South and that are willing to use their gifts, whether it be media, whether it be podcasts, whether it be the arts, to tell that story. Just like the Selma story, which I find it was just so mind-boggling to me because Selma is something we've studied in Alabama history since 7th grade. You know, I remember taking Alabama history and reading about Bloody Sunday and taking a field trip to Montgomery and seeing the Montgomery Civil Rights Movement memorials. This wasn't, when the movie came out, this wasn't anything new to me. It was new to the rest of the region. To the rest of the country, it was new. And I think that we have to there are other stories like Selma. And I think that, number one, we have to continue to partner with other folks that are pushing it and tell that story, whether it be the story of the Clotilda, which I want to do a podcast one day and tell that story. But I think the second thing is that we have to proactively challenge folks in different regions, really just one thing, challenge them to include a perspective from someone from the South. You know, that's one of the things I tried to do in the few emails I've sent is more or less broaden your perspective and understand and know that there are people that are from this area that are just as intelligent and just as witty as a Charles Barkley, but a little bit that are actually more intelligent and maybe a little bit more articulate and have that same personality. So I think we have to, number one, empower ourselves with a group of folks that are trying to do what we're doing, and number two is don't be afraid to challenge the powers that be to be more inclusive and diverse when it comes to, in regards to region of the United States.
Not other states, but even other parts of the South. Because, I mean, like, there are plenty conversations I have with people from different parts, so whether it's Atlanta or certain parts of Carolinas or even different parts of Alabama. You got to just challenge people even within it to stop putting, or stop reflecting negatively on different parts of the South, because we're all here together. I mean, because when they talk about the South, they can't, you just can't pick out a part of the South and say that's excluded. I mean, it's all together. They talk about all of us. So,
but to me, that's if you knew better, you do better. That to me, that's different than being essentially excluded when you're thinking of another region. But I see your point, though.
There's an obstacle that we have to overcome for most of us, Southern artists, Southern bloggers, journalists, and all that type of stuff. There is that obstacle that we just have to get over. And I think that the first step is just doing what we do, keeping it real and putting it out there the right way. And if you build it, they will come. And I think we've seen that evidenced in elements. Tide always talks about Paul Feinbaum and how he's taken the college football world by storm. And we've seen it in music going all the way back to the 90s with the Dungeon Family and the way that they came into it. And I think that's what it is. Now, sometimes it'll be in front of the curve. It'll take people a minute to catch up with it, but you just got to do what you do and, do our best to put it out there for the people. And they'll come to it. And I just encourage all people coming from this Southern origin to just do what you do. Don't buy into that stigma that you don't have what it takes, or that you're not creative enough, or you don't speak the right type of language. Don't buy into that. Just do what you do. Focus on quality and give the people what they need.
Point being, come on, people, get on board. This is Free Lunch Podcast. We've coined ourselves as home of the New South movement, and essentially that's us trying to push this Southern voice forward and the Southern perspective. So if you have a talent, whether you're an artist, we've spoken to Ashley Moore about some of the artwork she does. If you listen to our intro music, they're all from Southern artists. If that's something you do, whether you're a musician, you're clothing, you do clothing, you're an artist, we want to talk with you. We want to team with you. We want to partner with you. We want to do what we can to include our voice being that Southern perspective, that Southern voice in these large media markets and in these large, heavily dominated media personalities that are East Coast, West Coast biases. So that's what we're doing over here, and you want to team up with that, then at the end of the podcast, BG will give you some information to hit us up so that we can team and we can continue to push this movement and also tell that Southern story. So what you're going to get more of from us is more of not us having these great conversations, but more of us trying to tell that Southern story and tell the story that hasn't been told, similar to Bloody Sunday. We want to be historical, and we want to share historical facts that took place here in the South and also from folks that are from the South. So you'll get more of that to come in the upcoming weeks. So, all right, see, Cam, give the people your itinerary, sir.
Man, y'all made me act up, man. But yeah, man, for everybody out there again, man, I say, what's up with the family, New South family, man. This is Charles Campbell, better known as C. Frank Campbell on social media. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram, but we just out here trying to tell the truth, man.
Yep, live your truth so others can't use it against you. BG.
Holla at your boys.
Man, can you give us a quick flow before you get into that?
A quick flow?
Yeah, a flow and go.
You want a flow?
Let's get it, man.
Who win your top 5? Is it Biggie J? Is it not? I'm from the South, so it's cash tipping the mob. From the Kings Underground, I can't forget about Ball and G. Now close your eyes, feel the vibe. What do you see? Y'all say y'all want the flow?
You can't give us a little crazy verse?
Yeah, man, I got a little crazy verse. You ain't let me get into it.
No, this is real talk, right?
Hey, man, hey. When you bring that out. When you bring that rap out, anything can happen.
Man, how can the people reach us, man?
Holla at your boy, FreeLunchPodcast.com for blogs and podcasts. Also on Instagram, Free Lunch Podcast, and on Twitter, Free Lunch Pod C.
Hey, people, I'm telling you, we doing it for the Vine. That's taking a hiatus, unless we can get a sponsor or we can find a reason to bring it back. But with the direction we're going with, we might have retired or we might have buried for the Vine. So let me know what you want. We out of here. Free Lunch Podcast, home of the New South Movement. Peace.